Do Matthew and Luke disagree or contradict one another in the birth narratives of Jesus? I've been hearing that a lot lately on videos I've been watching, people that kind of disagree with the Bible and think that they contradict one another. And I had to talk about it because it seems like every time that I listen to it, they easily glance over a significant part of both of the narratives. So I wanted to talk about it. And today we are going to look at also a couple verses from the Old Testament and prophecy from the Old Testament that would have pointed towards the birth of Jesus, and see why there would have been what we call wise men, but they were technically Magi from the East that came to the birth of Jesus. Why were they there? My name is Brandon Fogal. This is Evolution. Let's dive into it. All right, first of all, I wanted to, in the book of Numbers, you don't need to skip there, but if you want to, it's Numbers 24:17. It says, I see him, but not now. I behold him, but not near. A star is emerging from Jacob. A scepter is rising from Israel, and it smashes the brow of Moab and the foundation of all the sons of Seth. A star. So there was the expectation of a star arising. So this would have been a prophecy about the future Messiah that Balaam prophesied. He was a not the best prophet. He was technically an ungodly prophet, but a prophet nonetheless. He wasn't in line with God, the God of the Bible, but he still prophesied. And there's people in the world that have that capability, that are able to prophesy, but might not be the best representatives of the God of Israel. Also, now we're going to skip ahead to Daniel, the book of Daniel. So when Israel was taken captive into exile. And I'm going to actually switch this so you can see it on the screen. This is going to be the verse from Daniel. When Israel was taken captive into exile to Babylon, they were there hundreds of years, and Daniel was there with them, and he gave prophecies, and there was the expectation of a future Messiah, and Daniel actually laid out a time frame for when the Messiah would come. So Israel went into captivity to Babylon, and then they were brought back, but there was still a remnant that remained in Babylon, and they would have had the prophecies of Daniel. And in that prophecy, if you go to Daniel 9:25, or actually 9:24 through 27, he writes, and given a specific, he gets it down to like the year of when he thinks when he is prophesying that the Messiah would come, and he gives it in this terminology of weeks. And the weeks represent years. So 1 week is 7 years. And then we'll find out that there actually is 1 week that is missing. But the weeks that talk about the coming of the Messiah, he lays those out, and it goes from the proclamation of the rebuilding of the holy city. All right, Daniel 9:24, I'm just going to read it to you. 70 weeks are decreed about your people and your holy city to finish the transgression, to put an end to sin and to atone for iniquity, to bring in everlasting righteousness, to seal both vision and prophet, and to anoint a most holy place. Know therefore and understand that from the going out of the word to restore and build Jerusalem to the coming of an anointed one, a prince, there shall be 7 weeks. Then for 72 weeks it shall be built again with squares and moat, but in a troubled time. And after 62 weeks, an anointed one shall be cut off and shall have nothing. And the people of the prince who is to come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. Its end shall come with a flood, and to the end there shall be war. Desolations are decreed. And he shall make a strong covenant with many for 1 week, and for half of the week he shall put an end to sacrifice and offering. And on the wing of abomination shall come one who makes desolate, until the decreed end is poured out on the desolator. So when Israel is in captivity in Babylon, Daniel is given this prophecy. So they don't know that they're going back to Jerusalem. And he says from the decree about the holy city, this is basically this time starts. This time starts to when the Messiah is going to come. And it also extends to the future of when the abomination of desolation. He talks about that in further chapters, but he's speaking about the Messiah when he says the prince shall come. So there was this expectation of the people there, and his writings would have been left there, even though they come back to Jerusalem. The Magi there, the people there would have had it, and they would have been timing it up for when the Messiah would come. So that is what brings them to find the Messiah, Jesus, in Jerusalem years later. Skip forward to the New Testament where we see about Matthew and Luke. Matthew and Luke give two different time frames, and this is what is easily skipped over that I've noticed. When Matthew is speaking, we're going to actually see what he says first. Matthew 2, verse 1, this is not the night that Jesus is brought into the world. And that's what people skip over. They think, well, Jesus came into the world, and then Matthew and Luke are given their own accounts, and they don't line up exactly, so they're contradicting one another. When actually they're talking about two different events, two different time frames. Matthew is speaking about not the night that Jesus brought into the world, but Luke is speaking about the night that Jesus is brought into the world. So we can see there would be a disagreement if we looked at it with just purely that if one person says one thing happened on one night and somebody says another thing happened on another night, they disagree. We get that. So Matthew writes in 2:1, he says, now after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem. This is after Jesus has been born. The wise men were not there on the night he was born, saying, where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him. It is speculated that the wise men would have saw this, whatever it is, this star, that there was the expectation from numbers, but then they physically saw a star and they were brought to Jerusalem based on this star. The star most likely went up on the night Jesus was born. So they're seeing it and then traveling from Babylon, from the east. It takes them, it's within at least 2 years. It's under 2 years, because we're going to find out that Herod decreed to slaughter everyone who was under the age of 2, based on when the Magi saw the star and came to Jerusalem. It says in 2:3, when Herod the king heard this, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. And assembling all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Christ was to be born. They told him Bethlehem. So by this time, Joseph and Mary and Jesus, they're still there. They're still there. And it says, they told him, go in Jerusalem, go into Bethlehem, find him, and then when you come back, report to me. But we find out the Magi, they are told by God in a dream not to go back and not visit Herod, and they skip around him. And then that's when the decree goes out to slaughter the innocents of the children under 2 years old. That's why it specifically gives that time frame, because they saw it within less than 2 years before. They come to Jerusalem, and now they're told to go back home. And Herod says he's been tricked, and he sends out the order to kill all the children. And then Joseph and Mary and Jesus, they are taken to Egypt. They're taken to Egypt. Matthew, on the other hand, no, that was Matthew. So let's skip forward. Luke, on the other hand, in Luke chapter 2, this is the actual night Jesus was born. So the Magi were not there. They were still in the east, in Babylon or wherever they're from. And it's not 3 wise men. It's probably a whole group of people. But we think of 3 just because based on the gifts that they brought them. But the Magi are still in the east on the birth night of Jesus. It says, in those days, this is Luke 2, in those days a decree went out from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be registered. This was the first registration when Quirinius was governor of Syria, and all went to be registered, each to his own town. And Joseph also went up from Galilee, from the town of Nazareth to Judea, to the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and lineage of David, to be registered with Mary, his betrothed, who was with child. And while they were there, the time came for her to give birth, and she gave birth to her firstborn son, and wrapped him in swaddling cloths and laid him in a manger, because there was no place for them in the inn. This is the night. It's not the same day that the Magi came. And in the same region, there were shepherds out in the field keeping watch over their flock by night, and an angel of the Lord appeared to them, and the glory of the Lord shone around them, and they were filled with great fear. And the angel said, "Fear not, for behold, I bring you good news of great joy that will be for all people. For unto you is born this day in the city of David a Savior who is Christ the Lord." And so the shepherds are out there, and they're the ones to go and see Jesus in the manger with Joseph and Mary. So it's years later. It's like within 2 years later that we find out that when the Magi come, they're not in a kind of a cave or where Jesus would have been born, but they're actually in a house, and Jesus is a little bit more grown up, under the age of 2, but he's a little bit more grown up. He's sitting on Mary's lap. 2 different time frames. So I just had to speak about this. I had to talk about this because so many people I hear over and over their disagreements and saying Matthew and Luke do not line up together. One says one thing, another says the other thing. When actually, when you look at the text together, there is agreement. One is given one point of view and one night, and another is given another event that happened within 2 years later. They line up, but I just over and over I just hear people that just assume one says they're both speaking about the same thing, so they can't agree and they're disagreeing with one another. I had to address that and just talk about that, and I know a lot of people just come to it and they're already settled in their position. I'm defending it because I believe in the narratives. I don't believe there is any contradiction, but some people will disagree with that. I know, but I'm not going to just say and look at the text and just assume that it's right. Assume it's completely inerrant and completely infallible. I will approach it with a skeptical vision and look at it and see, is there disagreement? Could I understand where somebody from the other side is coming from? So we'll leave it at that. I hope you took something away from that. When they're talking about, they're not talking about the same event, but we'll leave it at that.